This is my musical introduction to studying the book of James.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to week number 5. Forget what week this is. It's the 4th lesson, though. Lesson number 1 from James 2 was on favoritism. Lesson 2 was on faith versus works, or really faith and works. They're not opposed to each other. And then the third one was on the tongue last week. And now we begin chapter 3, verses 13 through 18, talking about wisdom. Remember, James, the author here, the half-brother of Jesus, said at the beginning, I'm going to try to say it all throughout here, he's constantly referencing Jesus and the Proverbs. And here, the echoes between the Proverbs and James's teaching are unmistakable. Jesus must have known the Proverbs inside and out. Obviously, Jesus had untold divine wisdom, and he must have let his little brother James know just how important it was, because James says so succinctly here many really powerful things. And over the next few days, I'm only going to be able to take 1 or 2 verses at a time because it's just so profound. But I want to get into it. Let's take a look at James chapter 3, verse 13. It says this: "Who among you is wise and understanding? By his good conduct, he should show that his works are done in the gentleness that comes from wisdom." Okay, let's pick this apart a little bit. Who among you is wise and understanding is kind of James's way of transitioning topics and starting off with a challenge. Is there someone that's wise here? Who is understanding? And it's interesting that wisdom and understanding are 2 separate words here. Wisdom being the way you act. Wisdom is action. Wisdom is knowing how to act rightly. Understanding is be able to see something clearly, to know a certain situation or to know a fact. I can look at a book and I can understand the words on the page, right? I can understand what these words say, but wisdom is when I take that understanding and put it into right action, righteous action. Obviously, this lines up with the whole book of James, which is about a real world faith, taking the things we think and turning them into a force, an evangelistic force, a force to bring God's kingdom to earth. That's what the whole book is about. So James is saying, okay, who here is like this? Who's wise and who's understanding? Here's the litmus test for if someone is wise and understanding. By his good conduct, or wisdom is acting rightly, by his good conduct, he should show that his works are done in the gentleness that comes from wisdom. It's so fascinating to me to think that gentleness might be a litmus test for wisdom. I heard this great concept. Let me stew for a second, make sure I get this right. There is an interesting relationship between confidence and competence. So if you imagine a graph that looks kind of like this, right? Where your competence, or your confidence rather, is marked in the vertical plane, right? And your actual competence is measured in the horizontal plane, okay? So the further we go along with this way, the more competent you actually are. You're actually good at the thing you're thinking about. And in the vertical plane is your actual, is how you think, how good you think you are, or how good you think you act. I'm gonna use guitar playing as an example, because I've been playing guitar for about 15 years, and it's part of my current job as a worship pastor. I have a degree in music, so I'd like to think that I have developed a decent competence in music, and let's just use guitar playing as an example. The graph tends to go like this. As you begin to play a little bit more and more and more, your confidence in your abilities just skyrockets out of the gate. And you reach a certain crest very quickly. Like, man, I'm pretty good at this. And then very suddenly, and for the next quite a while, you plummet almost back down to nothing. And you go, I am trash at this. You realize the gap between you and the people that are doing it really, really well, and you go, okay, I am absolute trash. But if you'll persist, you'll have this immediate bump in confidence, and then you'll go, okay, I realize I'm actually terrible at this. And if you keep at it and keep at it and keep at it and keep at it, eventually you get to a point where you go, yes, I know how to play the guitar fairly well. And you actually can play the guitar fairly well. All that just to say, there are a lot of people who believe that they know a thing or are great at a thing, and they're incredibly confident about it. But people who aren't actually great at guitar playing, but have been playing for a little bit and progressed quickly, they tend to be very brash. They're that kid on the college campus that just brought the guitar everywhere with them. Or the kid, and I was one of those for a while, right? We all had that person who like, I'm amazing at this thing, and they take every chance they get, and they're banging on the door of every coffee shop and of every worship team and of every band saying, I can play guitar, I can play guitar, I can play guitar. And what's happened is that their competence doesn't match their confidence. So typically they get kind of frustrated, and very soon either they will get dejected or they'll keep digging and keep playing and realize what we all realize, like, oh, I'm not nearly as good as I thought I was. You have to go through a long process. And then there's the other end of the spectrum, and I'm not gonna use myself as an example because I'm not truly there yet, but I worked for a guy who had just made his entire life about playing the guitar. He had toured successfully. He had just this ridiculous wealth of knowledge about things about the guitar that I never could have, but he was the most soft-spoken guy, most laid back. He was an LA guy, just chill. What's up, man? You play guitar? Awesome. They hear about a kid who's just starting to play the guitar and they're psyched. What you don't realize is that guy has devoted 50 to 60 years to guitar playing every single day, and is virtuosic, just ridiculous, will shred, will eat people alive, has been on stage with the likes of Metallica and all these other crazy rock bands that he's toured with. But you would never know it. You would never, if you bumped into him in the supermarket, you think, that's just a guy. Because he's so inundated with the thing, and he's been through so much, and he's played so much guitar, he just no longer feels the need to like prove it to everybody. Okay, let's drop out of the analogy and think for a little bit about this wisdom litmus test. The people who are truly wise and are truly living well have just no more dog in the fight to try to show everyone how well they're doing. That there is a certain gentleness when you actually are just content with living how God says you should live, and you no longer want to lord it over others. And pastors and churches and Christian people are just as guilty as this. They will start studying the Bible and very quickly be very, very, very confident in all their assertions. And either they can stay there and or there is a point at which when you keep digging in the Word, you start to realize how much of this you don't understand. And even if you do understand it, there's so much of it that you don't practically live out. And maybe after years and years, decades and decades of just humble, prayerful service to the Lord, you might get to a place where your actions match your understanding of this scripture. And that person at that point is going to exude a gentle spirit. There's no more ego. There's no more dog in the fight. There's no more, look at how much better my theology is than yours. There's no more, look at how much better I'm living than you. They see a baby Christian who's just started to figure it out, and they're going, yes. They're so excited. They just want to see people follow Jesus. And I hope that when we want to start looking at real world faith, let's try to shortcut this process, all right? Let's go straight to the humility part. Let's go straight to recognizing that if you're truly wise, you don't have to flaunt it. You don't have to make a point of it. And you don't have to be abrasive about it. You don't have to make a rant in your Instagram stories about it. You don't have to write a novel as a Facebook post about how others should be living as wisely as you are. You don't have to comment on that political post you disagree with. You just don't have to. That there is a gentleness that comes with true Christ-like wisdom that we should all strive for. All right? Friend, I hope that you today will let your confidence match your competence and be as gentle as Christ was about how well he lived. All right? See you next time. Love you.